What's up, everybody? Welcome to You Rankin with me. I am your host, Chadwick Webb. Over here, we have my co host, James Tancock. We have my wife, Kerri Webb, as a frequent guest, and a newcomer to the channel, Chris Baker Scott, who is a really big horror fan. And we're having him on because we're ready to talk about Friday the 13th. It is Friday the 13th today, and we're very, very excited to get through this franchise. It's one that is really interesting because I'm not sure if there's any movies in it that are leaps and bounds fantastic. But I feel like every movie in the franchise like has its place with like little bit of differences here or there, but a lot of it is the same thing. So I'm very interested to see like where we have these rankings as far as um little bit of like nitpicks that we can do to kind of rank these things above each other, because this ranking was very hard for me at times, I'll say. But yeah, we are going to go through and rank these movies. There's 12 movies in this franchise, going from the original Friday the 13th back in 1980 to the remake Friday the 13th in 2009. Everyone has come in prepared with, their individual ranking of 12, movies. We're going to go through, starting with our 12s. We'll go through a round to try and figure out where we have commonalities. And once we hit a commonality, that's when we'll start to talk about specific movies. However, if someone says a movie really low that's like in your top five, say, then you really want to talk about it a little bit later. Like, this deserves to be talked about towards the end, save the best for last, kind of a deal. Um, then you could just say, wait for it. Hey, I have that one a lot higher. I love that movie. Let's talk about that later. Whatever you want to say to let us know how much you love that movie. Um, and yeah, we'll end up with sharing all of our rankings, and then Kerri is going to come up with a combined ranking at the very end, just to see what we were able to what kind of list we were able to make at the end of this. So without further ado, I think we can go ahead and get started with our 12s. So I'll go ahead and start. My 12 is Jason Goes to Hell. James, what is your 12?
That is also my 12.
All right. Chris, what is your 12?
My 12 is the remake.
Okay. All right. Kerri, what is your 12?
My 12 is Jason X.
All right. Wow. Jason X is a wait for it for me, actually. So, yeah.
All right. Okay.
little bit higher with that one. All right, so let's go through 11s real quick. 11, James, what is your 11?
I had a part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, is number 11.
Okay. Chris, what is your 11?
My 11 is Freddy versus Jason.
All right, nice. Kerri, your 11.
My 11 is the remake.
All right, and my 11 is also the remake. So,
okay, I was a little worried the remake was going to score up a little higher for some reason.
Yeah. All right, so we can actually talk about the remake now, because 3 of us have mentioned it and no one said wait for it. So I don't think James has mentioned it yet.
I have not mentioned it yet. No.
So it's a little bit higher for him, but not in his top 5. So I don't know. I can go ahead and start real quick with this one. The remake is one that I've never really liked, and then upon this, revisit of it, I wanted to like more, because I've heard some people try and defend it and say like, this is actually kind of brilliant in like its own way. Although I've heard similar people try and talk about the same thing, talk about Rob Zombie's Halloween movies the same way. So I feel like if you like that style, you would probably like this. You would probably like the Rob Zombie's Halloweens. Maybe. I mean, I feel like, Rob Zombie's stuff is a little bit more brutal than this is, but I feel like it's kind of all revolving around the same type of movie. Like these mid to late 2000s remakes. That's just what we're doing now, is just remakes. And because I don't think we can think of anything unique now, so we're just going to remake stuff from the 80s. And I just don't. I thought it was a cool idea to take like the first four movies and like remake them like that. It is almost like what Rob Zombie tried to do with like the first movie, where he was trying to like expand and do a little bit of a prequel and then remake the first movie. And this Friday the 13th remake was like, well, let's take the first like four movies or three movies and like do it in like 2 hours, where you have you go from this point to that point. I like, seeing them kind of get in the mask and stuff like that, but ultimately it just felt like it was like overabundance of like sex and nudity, where it just felt like
Yes.
that was the whole point of the movie. And it really just didn't feel like. I loved seeing Jared Padalecki, don't get me wrong. I'm a big Supernatural fan, but that, other than that, there's really not too much for me to grasp onto or enjoy. I would rather go see like campy 80s Friday the 13th movies than this one. It just, I think the style could work for some, but not for me. So yeah, James, what did you think about the remake?
I had the remake at number 8, so I think I had it a little bit higher than everyone else, but not for like too many better reasons. I know, like what you were saying, Chad, it is just gratuitous nudity, which is fine, but I think that, I don't know, I don't think it really helped it that much. I kind of hated all the characters. I didn't like anyone in the beginning, but they all died, of course. I think it's an interesting concept that Jason just really got pissed off at people trying to steal his weed. So that was kind of an interesting kind of plot device there. They just really wanted it, and he had something to say about it. But there wasn't much else to like take away from it. But I think I just found this one a little bit better than obviously what I had below it. And I think is, like you were saying, you'd rather see campy 80s, kind of action slasher stuff. I get that from most of the other movies in this. So this is just a little bit below halfway on my list. Not my favorite.
Makes sense. Chris?
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of that. It just, for me, like I had it dead last, mostly just because it just didn't feel like. I mean, maybe it's because I'm holding it to the degree of just classic Friday the 13th, but it just didn't feel like one of those movies. It felt very much just like, in this era of the early aughts or late aughts, I could get that type of a slasher with anyone, or any like kind of a slasher, Like there was a scene where Jason runs up to kill someone, and I'm like, that's a little weird. Like, just, I don't feel like he doesn't really do that, but yeah, it just didn't feel like a Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like because normally he's just the slow bumbling guy, and then once he gets
Right.
to you, then he'll like do some damage and swing
Yeah.
around. But like running at people, it's almost like the slow versus fast zombies debate.
Mhm.
Like, that's not how they're supposed to behave, kind of a deal. So I totally get that. That makes a lot of sense. Just not my Jason, I guess.
Right.
Kerri, what do you think?
Yeah, I really agree with everything you guys have said. The characters in this, like I guess teenage, college age characters, they like remind me. I feel like Tucker and Dale versus Evil like directly took those characters when it like created characters for their movie, like the college age teens who are so mean for like no reason. um, yeah, like you guys said, it's really of its era, and I think the things that kind of work well in the 1980s Friday the 13th movies, they just don't carry over to this movie that's like shot more modern and has like more of that time, like modern references. And yeah, like you guys said, it just doesn't really feel like the classic ones. So yeah, I have a hard time watching this one. So it was pretty low for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, you got to respect the try. like when you've done everything else in this franchise, hey, let's update it and stuff, right? Let's see if that works. We had the team up. Now let's have just a modern remake and see if it works. And for some it does. For us, it does not, apparently. All right, so we can move on to our number tens, right? Um, Chris, what is your number 10?
My number 10 is part 9, Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday,
All right,
the 13th.
Kerri,
Yeah.
what is your 10?
My number 10 is Freddy versus Jason.
All right. Yep. Mine is Friday the 13th, part 3, the 3D one. James, what is your 10?
That's pretty high up for me.
Yeah,
Me
wait for that
too.
one.
Oh,
Yeah. 10.
interesting. Okay.
I had Freddy versus Jason.
Oh, nice. Okay. Wow. All right. So maybe I'm undervaluing something here. Um, all right. So I don't think there's much commonality there. We can go into nines.
I think
Oh,
I think we could talk about actually Jason Goes to Hell and Freddy versus Jason. Because
all
those
right.
have
Fair.
3 at this point, I think.
Okay. Well, you're tallying it, so I trust you. All right. So we could talk about Jason Goes to Hell. Chris, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, that one, it's one, when I revisit this series, which, I've done that a few times, that's always one that's a struggle watch for me. Um, just because it doesn't keep my attention, really. Because, like, it feels very weird. And not in the good way. Um, like, there's this new, like, lore with how he works, and just, oh, it's so awkward. It's so awkward whenever I watch part 9.
Yeah. Um, that makes total sense. Kerri, what do you think about this one? I think you
Um,
like this one actually.
I like this one. I still have it pretty low ranked. I have it as my number 7. Because I recognize objectively this is a bad movie. um, but something about it, especially like the first time I watched it, I just thought it hilarious. Like just out of nowhere, Jason can like go into different people, and like the acting in this is honestly a little bit funny, and I think the actors are like just doing the best they can with the material. The opening is kind of like kind of pokes fun at itself. It's a little meta, so that's pretty fun. And I really like the ending. This is the one that ends with Freddy's glove coming up. So that's really fun. But yeah, it's not a good movie.
Yeah. I had this one ranked last. Um, it's not without its moments and its stuff like you know uh you got Stephen Williams as Creighton Duke, the is like the bounty hunter guy. He's kind of awesome, but like I just don't feel like the writing around him or like anything that's going on around him just really works. But I really like that actor from also Supernatural. Um, and this feels like kind of like an episode of Supernatural or Buffy or X Files or something like that, where I feel like I've seen this kind of thing where a thing is just passing between hosts and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like it feels just like kind of like false advertisement where it's like Jason Goes to Hell, sure, but like at the very end, and then like you have like Chris was saying, you have like this whole different new lore that they're just surprising on us, like and just we're trying to make sense of all of this new stuff that they're just adding just out of nowhere. In one movie where we're just like, wait, what does this have to do with Friday the 13th, and Jason and Camp Crystal Lake and all that. You have like the mysterious dagger that you have to find, and he's gotta like what possess a Voorhees, and I don't know. It just feels like if maybe this had been something that hadn't been just written on the fly and could have been like the groundwork could have been laid out for it like way earlier on, it could have been cool or something. But it just feels kind of like oh shoot, what is the thorn or whatever from
Of the
Halloween,
Thorn
where it's just
Curse.
like, what
Yeah.
the what is this? Kind of a deal. But I will say, like as Kerri was talking about, the opening is kind of awesome, where it just like the FBI shows up and starts shooting, or no, they shoot a rocket launcher at them, and it's like this is like pretty amazing. But I wish like the movie that followed would have been something amazing, and I just don't think it was. James, what do you think about this one?
Um, yeah, I had part 9 at number 12. This was, I mean, pretty bad overall. I mean, I know that opening scene was wild because how Jason doesn't see 65 FBI agents in the forest. We've spent how many movies walking through the forest, killing people, seeing exactly where they are. But I get it. If it's supposed to make a joke in and of itself, then fair enough. I guess it worked. It was amusing to me. I mean, he should have known something was up when that woman survived that fall on that table, then power slid over that car and vaulted over all that camping gear. And it's like something was different about that scene to begin with. But it got pretty weird after that, too. I mean, we've already talked about him possessing other people, which has never, I don't think it's ever happened in any of these movies. It was an odd plot point. It was weird to see whatever the hell that thing was that I guess was like some creature form of Jason. When it gets knocked out, that one person is crawling around the basement. It goes up that woman's vagina, and then all of a sudden we get, her again. So you were calling it the thing, but it's like something out of the thing, literally. So maybe it's trying to
Mm.
nod to that or something. I have no idea, but it was a little bit odd for a Friday the 13th movie. And then I guess the end was cool, but I've never seen this before watching this time. So my impression was he would like somehow die or go to hell in the beginning and it'd be like some journey through hell type thing. But no, it's just a bunch of obvious rubber arms coming up from the sand and grabbing him and dragging him under. So maybe maybe Jason goes to hell crawled so that Drag Me to Hell could walk or something like that, because that's all I got from the end of that was like, oh, is this where they got the Drag Me to Hell idea at the end when they all just, arms come out and they just drag her under? So I don't know, probably not, but it's just funny to kind of, that's what I thought. That's the first thing I thought when I saw those arms come up. I mean, I guess it was cool with Freddy's arm grabbing his mask as the last little thing, because I mean, it wasn't a good movie, but it's cool to see these franchise kind of continued on this way, even if it's not that. So that was a cool little bit, though. I did like that.
Yeah, it's like an interesting history that like the whole Freddy versus Jason thing was just like supposed to happen since like the early 90s,
Mhm.
and like, so many people are trying to like write this stuff and they kept pushing it off, I think because of like rights, and no one could like figure out whose script they were going to use, and
Hmm.
all this type of stuff. But then they kept having to pivot, and I feel like this was a big pivot. But yeah, like you hit also, like they had the big Kerri moments at the end, with the hand popping out and Freddy laughing. It's kind of a cool moment, but it's just I'd rather just skip to that scene than watch the entire movie again. So yeah, that one is not very good. Um, and so we'll move on to talking about Freddy versus Jason, right, Kerri?
I think unless that's anyone has a wait for it for that.
I thought I was going to, but no.
Okay, then we can talk about it.
It's a little bit higher up for me, but yeah. Kerri, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. Yeah, Freddy versus Jason. I think I had this, yeah, at number 10. So it's not my least favorite, but it's pretty far down. I feel like it's very, like we were talking about with the remake, it seems like just so of its time and not in like a particularly good way, like very early 2000s. And for something that seems like it should be so epic, Freddy versus Jason, it just doesn't, for me at least, it just doesn't seem to work. Like Freddy still comes across kind of silly and Jason comes across like kind of bumbling, and I feel like neither of them seem super scary in this movie. um I don't know, just something about, like, I guess between the script and the acting, like the characters I just don't particularly care for. And I think we are supposed to actually care about them. um so yeah, overall this movie, it doesn't work as well as I want it to in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the thing is that there were so many cooks in the cooks in the kitchen with this one, where, like I said, you had like so many people trying to write this thing, and I feel like I've heard of like different scripts that were written that sounded like a lot like better than this one. Yet this is the one that they went with, and I think like Ronnie Yu, did his best. I think there is a lot to like about this one. I think it's really interesting, like the concept of Freddy trying to get people to be scared of him again because they're all like on hypnosil and not dreaming. So he's like, I'm he's just trapped in hell or whatever and can't feed on kids or whatever. And so he enlists Jason, and then I think the funny part of that is that Jason gets out, and then he starts just killing people, and then Freddy's like,
Mhm.
wait, no, you're killing too many people. I just think that's really funny because it's like you maybe picked like the worst the worst guy to help you because he loves killing. So yeah, um I feel like a lot of the stuff is just built on trying to get to the end fight, which is what everyone wants to see. um, can't remember exactly how long the fight is, but I feel like it's probably not like long enough. And but I think there are some really fun like cameos and like people from like that era um, popping up, and you go, I recognize that person and stuff. So it's like a fun like early 2000s one. Oh, Kerri, I had this at number six.
Oh, okay.
And just outside of my top five because I was like, you know what? No, I don't have my highest ranked rated Friday the 13th movies 3.5 stars. So I have this at like 3 stars. I think it's like just barely maybe a good movie, but maybe tipping to not. It's on the edge for me. Where it's just I find it watchable. I find it interesting. And funny in a lot of ways. And I think the fight is pretty awesome. And I like that they have like a draw at the end, sort of. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool what they were able to do. Although I wish they would have been able to do it a little better. Um, yeah, maybe one day we'll have probably not have the Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. Because I mean the actors who play those characters are getting older, so you'd have to recast them, I'm sure. James, what do you think about this one?
No, yeah, Freddy vs. Jason definitely wasn't my favorite by any means. I had it at number 10. It was, I don't know. I guess obviously the whole point, like you said, Chad, was to get to the end fight. But in the beginning, when he sees his mom and she's like, "You need to go over to Elm Street. Those kids have been extra bad," or something like that. It's just, I'm guessing Elm Street is within walking distance of Crystal Lake because I don't. I mean, I don't
Totally.
know the Nightmare on Elm Street
They're both
franchise
in New
that
Jersey, I guess.
that well, but yeah, I would imagine they're down the block from each other because it was a little bit odd for her to fixate on that in the beginning. But the whole point being the fight in the end, which I mean was cool enough, but it was kind of comical seeing Jason get kind of thrown around the room like a pinball machine type thing was a little bit silly. But I mean, it was okay overall, but definitely not my favorite. Not all that great.
I will add to your point, like the about the distance between them. I think like the point too of the Elm Street was that it was supposed to be like any like street like in the suburbs. I don't think it
Okay.
was supposed to be a very specific location like New Jersey, but
Okay.
it could take place in New Jersey. So
Well, I
maybe
guess
it's
it does
just
now.
any Elm Street is
It's just this
is
nebulous
fair
thing.
game.
Yeah, I guess so.
So yeah, Chris, what'd you think about this one?
It was my 11th.
Mm.
So like I'm just really weird when it comes to like most things where it does that matching of X versus Y. Like even like the Sadako versus Kayako like movie that came out not too long ago. Sometimes I just want to like stick with them in their separate like fields because they do their separate thing, and I like that they do that. I don't know if I need them to like fight, but on your point, Chad, like if they're gonna fight, I want more of just them like battling. Like if you're gonna put me in that world, then let's just make use of it. Honestly, killing of like actual humans should just be in like kind of the backdrop, in my opinion, on that because these two powerhouses. But yeah, it's one that I don't quite revisit that much. I do always find it funny, and I always forget that Kelly Rowland is in it. Like
Yeah.
whenever she shows up, I'm like, oh yeah, right, duh. It's just so trapped in a particular pop culture time that's delightful, but I don't know if it's delightful enough for it to rank higher for me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think maybe they could have just had like more fights throughout.
Yeah,
That could have been kind of cool. Round one, round two, final, kind of a deal. But we didn't get that movie. All right, moving on to what, Kerri? Our number nines, I think.
Mhm.
All right, so you what is your number nine?
My number 9 is part 6, Jason Loves.
Whoa, that's definitely a wait for it for
I
me.
Yeah, it's a
know, I
wait for it.
know. I
Yeah,
have a
wait
hot
for it.
take on that one.
And mine is part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Okay, James, what is your 9?
My 9 is Jason X.
All right, that's still
uh,
a wait for it for me. Chris, 9.
my 9 is also Jason X,
All
but
right.
Jason Takes Manhattan is also a wait for me though.
Oh, okay. All right, so we got a few wait for it's then. So we'll go on to 8, and I'll go with that one. My 8 is A New Beginning. James, what is your 8?
Oh, mine was the remake, the 2009.
That's right. Chris, what is your 8?
7, The New Blood.
Okay. Is New Blood a wait for it for me?
It's a wait for it.
It
For
is.
me.
It is actually a wait for it for me. Kerri, what is your 8?
My 8 is also A New Beginning.
Okay. Can we talk about A New Beginning, or do we have to go to 7s?
Only 2 of us have said it, so I
Okay.
think we should go to 7.
All right. James, what is your 7?
For number 7, I had part 5.
Part 5. Which one is that? The
New Beginning.
Oh, I'm sorry.
New
Yeah,
Beginning.
yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Chris, what is your 7?
My 7 is part 6, Jason Lives.
Oh, wow. Okay. Kerri, what is your 7?
My 7 was Jason Goes to Hell.
Okay. My 7 is The Final Chapter.
Okay, that's a wait for it for me. But if no one has part 5, A New Beginning is a wait for it, I think we can talk about that.
All right. Cool. So part 5. Kerri, you started last time. I guess I can start with this one. A New Beginning is interesting. I actually like this one. I find it's I don't know, it's just weird when you like hear like about the background of it, where people are like, like everyone was on drugs, just like kind of having sex in the forest, and they were like, man, the amount of like sex and nudity they actually cut out of this movie would blow your minds. Like it would not be just a rated R, I guess. They're straight up shooting like porn or something for that movie. But I don't think a lot of that shows through. It's I find it pretty tasteful. I feel like there's a lot of like unlikable characters in this. I don't like the mom and son that they have in it. I find them pretty unbearable. I always get really sad when I know that like that one kid with the chocolate is about to get murdered the way he does, which is very gruesome. Um, and then like that ties into the whole thing. And I know a lot of people are angry or were angry about the fact that this is not really a Jason movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a copycat, or it's like a guy who wears the mask and goes around killing, because of that kid with the chocolate. That was his son. Um, and so yeah, I like that twist. I think it's kind of cool. Because when I'm going through this, I'm like, which one is this one? Because they're all kind of similar. They all take place at a camp or a halfway house or something else, and it's just a bunch of people getting killed a lot. So what's the gimmick, or what's the thing with this one? And this is the one where it's not actually Jason. I think that's kind of cool. They didn't do that before. It was either always Jason or Jason's mom, and so I think that twist is really cool. You have Tommy Jarvis is like the main kind of guy in this. Um, I don't know. There's really not much else to say about it. There is the enchiladas scene,
Oh,
which I think is pretty great. I was messaging Kerri about that earlier, where I was like, just the line about or just the description of, he had what was it, serious diarrhea because of the enchiladas, and then he gets killed that way, which is really funny. And then I told Kerri, I was like, I'm gonna get something for lunch, but not enchiladas. But yeah, anyways, enough about the enchiladas. James, what do you think about this movie?
Yeah, this one was okay. I don't necessarily kind of like the route they took with it, but just because we're all used to Jason being Jason, not some person like impersonating him necessarily. But I think it was overall. I think I liked it more obviously than all the later stuff. I think these movies kind of fall into like their own kind of like areas. Like none of them are like great, and this one isn't either. But I think it's better than like the worst stuff, if that makes any sense. The concept was okay. The kills were cool. I like the halfway house kind of setting was all right. I kind of like the way they did that, but I wasn't much a fan of this movie though.
Makes sense, Chris.
um, this one, it ranked, where it did for me, just because the killer reveal, it didn't do that much for me. I do like the idea of trying something new. One thing that does save it for me though, is the soundtrack. Like, I liked kind of a bit of the new wave sound that you get, especially with that one kill of the blonde girl when she's like dancing or whatever, and she hears him behind her, stops, and then just continues, and then like he's just there and kills her. I like that song. Like, the band, I guess, Pseudo Echo, they had like one hit maybe, and that was it. Um, but outside of that, uh, Tommy Jarvis as a character, I enjoy him as a character, purely just because in the Friday the 13th movies, we get him as like a final boy. And you don't get that much in horror, seemingly. So it's nice to have him there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Kerri.
Yeah, this one, yeah, pretty in the middle for me. It's not like one of my favorites, but I think it's pretty watchable. I think parts of it are pretty fun. A lot of the kills are pretty cool. And yeah, I agree. I like Tommy as a character. So well, in two of the three movies, I like Tommy as a character. So I do that. But this one I like him in. So
All right, great. Kerri, are we going to our sixes, or we have something else to talk about?
yeah, we're going to our sixes, and I think everything else is gonna be a wait for it. So I guess we can do our sixes and then our fives.
Okay, Chris, what is your six?
My sixes, part five, A New Beginning.
All right, Kerri.
My six is part eight, Jason Takes Manhattan.
Okay, mine is Freddy versus Jason. James.
My
Six.
number 6 was part 7.
Okay. Um, the New Blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we go into fives, Kerri.
Yep.
All right. So, Kerri, what is your five?
My number five is part two.
My number five is the original Friday the 13th.
Wow.
James, what is your 5?
I had part 6 at number 5.
All right, Chris, what is your 5?
My 5 is part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan.
Nice. Okay. Can we talk about Jason Takes Manhattan now, Kerri?
Yeah.
All right. So that's where we're at. And I started last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
James, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, sure. Jason Takes Manhattan. I had this one all the way down at number 11. I wasn't too much a fan of this one. I mean, we're definitely, deep into the whole, just how over the top can some of the kills be, just the campiness is, hit, more or less its maximum, I think at least. It's hilarious when he's in Manhattan finally and he punches that whole dude's head off in one blow. That was hilarious to me. But again, at this point, why not? It's just funny. It's just, it could be making fun of itself like the Jason Voorhees shooting gallery in part 9 or, the final Friday. But I wasn't too much a fan, I guess, of the story overall too. And it's hilarious in the beginning in the boat when he puts that. I think it's this one, at least, where he puts the lady's head through the wall and it punches out the other side of the wall, like the shape of her face, kind of. I was like, all right, here we go. We're getting into this type of kills here. It was kind of weird. I guess why I forget if it ever explained why he was like on that particular boat to kill all those people, because
I
it
don't think
seems
they
like
do, to be
he
honest.
just kind of was like, all right, this ship of kids, they're dying this time. I'm going to walk from Crystal Lake to wherever that bay was to get on the boat, and then I'm going to wind up in Manhattan too, I guess. So
Because
I
he,
don't know.
he kills people like to a couple on a houseboat on Crystal Lake,
Right?
and
Yeah,
then like he's suddenly on this ship that's going to New York for some reason.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'm not 100% how we got down there. Obviously, he had to have walked, so it must be within walking distance of Crystal Lake. But
Just past Elm Street.
but again, I mean, funny kills. I guess it's getting over the top. I can appreciate for what it is, but there's a lot that's, I guess, better in this franchise. So I'll just say that much.
Nice, nice. Well, Chris likes this one.
I do. There's something about okay. I like I love camp. And I love that specifically with this movie, it's of that era where New York, it's gritty, it's dangerous. And they're really banking on that. Like bringing Jason, who is like a threat and who is danger, to New York, where the streets are just very dangerous of this era. And he's just wandering around doing his thing, encountering people, and they're just somewhat going about their day in some cases. Like in the subway when he just like knocks over a woman and he's just walking to the subway and no one cares. He goes to that diner at one point, and again, like no one seems to care. The woman is running for her life, and they're just like, "Well, it's New York, it's Manhattan. I don't know what to tell you." So that really sells it for me. The ending loses it for me a little bit, like in the sewer. It kind of weird. I don't know what we were doing with that. When our final girl is kidnapped and these, I guess they're dealers, but they just shoot her up with what, like some type of drug randomly.
Mhm.
Again, it harkens back to like New York of this time. It's so dangerous. Some would say even more dangerous than Jason, but and for that I love that. I love that vibe that the movie was trying to go for, but still being silly with it. And the boat is a good time too. Like him on the boat, it also kind of gives me, some laughs and some good times.
Totally. Kerri.
Yeah, I also like this one. Like, I think it's just really, really fun and ridiculous. Like, one that it's called Takes Manhattan, and like, I think maybe half of the movie, if you're being generous, takes place in Manhattan. Like,
Like 20
most of,
minutes.
Yeah.
yeah, most of it is on this cruise ship. And like you guys were saying, it's not clear, like, does Jason go from the lake to the bay, or do they just pretend the lake turns into like a bay and then an ocean, like all of a sudden, like it's not actually a lake or something? I don't know. I think the guitar kill is pretty cool, and like
Hmm.
all the stuff in uh the like I don't like 80s ballroom disco thing in the cruise ship. I don't know, all of that I think is it's really really fun. Um, yeah, I mostly have fun with this one. I do agree with Chris that kind of the ending sort of it really loses steam and just becomes like more difficult to watch. But I think for most of it, I really enjoy this one.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one more this time around than I ever have before. Um, where I don't know, I wanted to enjoy it more, but I've also enjoyed it less before. Um, I think because the first time, the initial like, wait, is he ever going to get to New York? Kind of
Right.
like when, come on, like what are we doing here? When you get over the initial surprise of that it is only like the last like 20 minutes of the movie where they actually get there. Um, you know, I think you can start to like it a little more because you do like some of the ship stuff, and then I think Chris nailed it. Like when they get to New York, like a lot of the stuff is kind of funny and kind of like campy and like uh, w- Jason like juxtaposed to New York City. He's maybe not even like all that threatening anymore. And like I do love that like fight that they have with the one guy, and like he's really beating up on him. It's a much better moment than Buster Rhymes trying to beat up Michael Myers.
Oh God. Yeah.
It's a much better moment than that. Because it's like he's like sitting there like getting some good hits or whatever, but it's like it's Jason's. He's not really making that much of a dent, and then he just punches his head off, which is like really
It
really
was good
funny.
until that part.
But it's really funny though, and so
It
like that
is.
kind
Oh
of
yeah.
kind of plays into the camp. I kind of wish like what Chris was describing, it not being just 20 minutes of the movie and like really expanding on that. Now, the reason why they didn't do that is because they didn't have the budget. Shooting in New York is really expensive. And they just, I
Yeah,
think
wasn't
they
most
had,
of it filmed in Vancouver or something?
yeah. And
Yeah.
I think they only had like $5 million. So they just really didn't have that much money to shoot in New York. But had they, I think like having like an Evil Dead 2 style, like, uh Jason Takes Manhattan, that's really, really scary but really, really funny at the same time, I think could have been really, really cool. To see New Yorkers not really care, but then, scary stuff happens. He fights like a gang or something at some point, or I don't know, like whatever shenanigans you could have him get into in New York. Maybe he like crashes a Broadway show or something, and he's the star of it. I don't know. You could do a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, you could
Um,
ramp it up.
yeah, and then there was another part that I mean, I think you could have split the ship part and the New York part like in half. Like you could just have Jason goes takes a cruise or something like that. I don't know. Like just think like that a lot of different stuff with Jason could be kind of fun and funny, and scary. Um, I do like what they do with using him as a kid, and they do this in like Freddy versus Jason a lot too, where they're showing Jason sort of as like a sympathetic character, and I think a lot of the Friday movies that work well, a lot of the times will do that because like Jason is like a sad figure. Like he was drowned because he was neglected, and then his mom got pissed off, started killing people, and then you know, I don't know. It's just like I feel like if they were to kind of have a movie where they really go hard on that and like someone out there like a Mike Flanagan or something can make like a really good like Jason movie, like a human Jason movie where it just shows like his humanity and stuff that he never really got to grow up and things like that. So I don't know. But whatever they were trying to do with that, I just don't think it was that well executed. And I kind of when I see glimpses of stuff like that, I just go like, oh man, if only. Maybe when they start to like really lose the rights or something, maybe they'll make that movie. But yeah, Kerri, are we moving on to our fours?
Yeah, we can move on to our fours, I think.
All right, and uh, me, right? My four is part seven, The New Blood. James, what is your four?
My four, I had a part three.
All right, Chris, four.
My four is part four, the final chapter.
Kerri, four.
My four is The New Blood. So I think we can go ahead and talk about that.
All right, The New Blood. Chris, I think, right? Would you want to start with this one?
Absolutely. This one I had at my number 8 spot. Um, I want to like this movie more just because of how bonkers it is. Um, like the character of Tina, I think that's her name, like the final
Yeah.
girl, basically she's Kerri fighting Jason essentially. And on paper, love that. No notes. Sign me up. um, but I feel like a lot of it feels just kind of like a waste to me. Not a waste, actually. Let me not say it's a waste, because I do have fun with it. I still very much have fun with that movie. I guess I just wanted more. I
Mm.
wanted them to like just do a lot more with it.
Oh, yeah, I get it. Kerri.
Yeah, I had this at number four. There's a lot about this I do really like. Like I really like Tina's character, and I like the stuff between like her mom and her like weird therapist who's like horrible, and I don't know. I like how this one ends with her kind of getting the better of Jason. It's just like a true like final girl story. Um yeah, I do agree though. There's just like, especially this most recent watch, there's just parts of this for me that drag a little bit, and I kind of want things to get ramped up a little quicker. But overall, this is one I really like this one.
Yeah, no, I definitely see like where both of you are coming from. I have this a little bit higher just because I do like that concept a lot where it's, Kerri versus Jason kind of a deal. I like Tina as a character. I think a lot of the stuff that they set up is really good, and like the ending is really, really good. Where they're like fighting Jason, his demasks at some point, which is really
Mhm.
cool. I do think there is like a little like in the middle where it turns back into just another Friday the 13th movie where he's killing teenagers and stuff like that. Um, and that's kind of it. But then it does find its footing again towards the end. I really like the idea of Carrie, not Carrie, Tina. um, uh, she has so much trauma because she finds out about her powers by killing her dad, but her dad was like abusing her mother, so like you don't really feel bad about that, but like as a kid, like seeing the abuse happen, and then having you be responsible for taking that your dad's life, that's just like you're going to be messed up. I feel like maybe they could have actually hit that a little bit harder, where maybe she was even like more kind of, distraught. And I feel like she seems kind of normal for, I feel like, the most of it. But yeah, when she gets to the end, I really love that shot of her ghost dad breaking through the docks and like dragging Jason down. I just thought that was really cool. And I was like, I forgot that happened. And then I was like, what? Oh my God, that's crazy. And I just think that's cool that she's able to do stuff like that with her powers. Cause like Carrie White, I've never seen her do anything like that. you
She
know.
just
So
burnt down a whole gym.
yeah, but like she didn't conjure up the ghost of her dead dad. So just like thought that was that kind of cool, interesting, new kind of thing that you could do with the powers of a woman. And yeah, I like what Kerri was talking about with how it's like a true like kind of arc for and she gets the upper hand on Jason like truly. Whereas like the original, it's just her like cutting the mom's head off or whatever. And this is a really good one. So yeah, I like this one quite a bit. James.
Yeah, this one I had at number 6, like right in the middle. I feel like it was a part in the franchise where like the kills are still really, really cool, but the story like kind of starts teetering off or like has by this point. I liked the whole like, Carrie concept for the girl. I think there was some parallels I noticed like when she's fighting off her abusive dad, like kind of like parallels like Kid Magneto watching and getting tortured to like so they could like exploit his powers. I think the Kevin Bacon plays the antagonist in the X-Men movie was, but I kind of saw some like parallels to that a little bit. So that was like interesting in and of itself. It was hilarious in the end when Jason's getting like couches and furniture and shit thrown all over him. He's like actually like irritated he can't kill this like 90-pound girl. Like he's actually like frustrated it can't happen. He gets the pier dropped on him in the end. It was cool enough. I liked the aspect of it, but I think there's just a lot there's other movies with kind of like better ish storyline. I think to this. That's why I was kind of right in the middle.
Nice, nice. All right, so Kerri, I think we're going to our threes.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to the threes. James, what is your three?
My 3 is part 2.
Nice. Chris, what is your three?
My 3 is part 2.
Nice. Kerri, three.
My 3 is the final chapter.
Okay. My three is Jason X.
Okay, so we can talk about that one.
All right. And is that Kerri starting, I think?
Sure,
Wait.
I can start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this was my lowest ranked. And I know, Chad, you were watching it and you were having like a great time. You were pointing out to me all the stuff that's like really silly and campy. And I do kind of get it from that view. This one, though, every single time I put it on, I just cannot get into it. Like, I can tell you the general plot of this movie, but I've seen it like a few times now, and I just like still don't really know who the characters are besides Jason is there and like what's going on. Like I cannot get into this movie for the life of me. So a lot of times when I watch it, it's kind of just like a blur. Um, and I don't know, like Jason in space, that should be so fun. But I don't know. I can't. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah. I get it. I've been there. I the before this most recent time watching it, I've always said Jason X is not good. It's terrible. In fact, I think it's barely a movie. I do not like this movie. And then recently I just like watched it and I was like, I know some people do defend this one and I want to find out why. And then I kind of just watched it from the lens of a comedy and I just thought it was like really funny. It's like Jason meets Alien, where it's just like uh, there's a cyborg on the ship. How they use like technology, I think is really cool. Like they got the virtual sessions. In fact, they tricked Jason with one, and it's just funny to see him get tricked into a simulation where he's he's beating a girl in a sleeping bag with a girl in a sleeping bag. That's just, that's just really, really, really funny. Um, the one part where he goes to the guy and the guy's like, here, oh, this is your machete, and it's like, guys, it's okay, I just wanted his machete. And right before he dies, it's just it's just wild. It's the way it's shot is so weird. Even though I think this is like the movie with the highest budget, it looks so off. And I'm just wondering like how intentional that was, or not. And maybe it's like unintentionally funny and weird at times. But I just think like the idea of like like not a lot of it makes sense. Like it's just like the government's watching after Jason now. I guess that's the last resort because he keeps getting awoken, so they have to like guard him, and then they're like, well, now we're gonna freeze him to really because he like breaks loose, and they're like, we're gonna freeze him. So that's the only way to deal with Jason. And then later it becomes a problem when he's in space, 400 years down the road, and people are like, "Wait, what? I don't even know what this is." It's just kind of funny. They've never heard of Camp Crystal Lake and stuff like that, so it's kind of like a new, fresh kind of take on it. And then like to see him just go through and deal with all these new futuristic things is just so weird and funny. They have like ways of like healing people, but I guess not when you're dead. There's one guy that gets he's like, you're not gonna, I work out all the time. How do you think you're gonna get me? And they like stabs him through the door, and he's like, oh, that'll do it. Kind of a deal as he's dying. So it's just like the movie's not really even taking itself seriously. And I think when you have something like that, I feel like you can watch it from that lens where like this is maybe even an intentional comedy. I don't think it's like particularly like scary. I think there are moments where it can catch you off guard, but it goes crazy. Like he turns into, I think they called him when they were filming Uber Jason. Like he's about to turn into Uber Jason. Because like I love the part where the robot shows up, and she's been tricked out, right? And she like, just starts wailing on Jason, and it's like so cool. I know she's a robot, but you're seeing like even more than Tina versus Jason. This is like even like more badass, where she's like killing him, like blowing his leg off, blow half his head off. It's like really crazy until he gets reconstructed and stuff, and like fighting in space and just all this stuff. I don't know. I was like watching it from a different lens, and I just thought this one was actually pretty funny and great at times. And so, but I totally get if someone is on the total other wavelength, because I used to be on that wavelength, but I think this one's just really enjoyable to watch. And in a franchise where I don't think any of these movies are like fantastic, Jason X, I think, is just totally serviceable for me. So I have it a little bit higher. James.
Yeah, I had Jason X at number 9. Yeah, I immediately drew like alien, like colonial marines vibe from it when they're all in the spaceship, and you've got the guys with like the extra big guns, and you've got just the way they kind of like talk to and communicate with each other, and they move through the ship. I'm like, this is like a nod. It must be a nod or something to Aliens, because that's the first thing I got from it was colonial marines trying to fight off the creature on the ship. It was kind of cool to see him get like the Terminator-esque upgrade in the end, and they upgrade the other woman. I had an old moment in this movie because they're figuring out that the mask he had on was a hockey mask, right? And then one of the kids like, "Oh yeah, like what's hockey? Like it's a combat sport. It was outlawed in 2024."
Yep.
Oh no, we are catching up to these movies now in our current day when they are these
like 20 days. So if you like hockey, 20 more days and it's done. So
it's outlawed in 2024. I said, oh my God, this can't be happening. But we passed the years where they go in Back to the Future. They go back to some of the decades we've already hit. So that's going to happen. But
it was like 2018 or something.
2019, 2018, something like that. Yeah. But I couldn't believe hearing that. I was like, oh man, it's happening. It's already happening. I can't take this. But it was a fun watch, I suppose. At this point, it's just for the kills. He shoves that one woman's face into the cryo sink or whatever and freezes it off, and then like smashes it into the edge of the sink, like after he already, froze it. So I kind of like those over the top style kills. Like you said, Chad, when he stabs the dude through the door, he's like, "Yep, we'll do it." I thought the same scene in The Hobbit where Gandalf cuts the Goblin King with the Goblin Cleaver, and he's like, "Oh, well, that'll do it." But The Hobbit was bad. Anyway, different franchise. Anyway, yeah, this was fair, cool kills, interesting kind of like nods to other potential '80s movies, and yeah, a not cool old moment, but that's all right.
Chris.
Yeah, this one it was my ninth one pick. Um, Looking at it as like I feel like they intended as a full-on comedy because there's so many moments where the movie is winking at us and like letting it like they're allowing us in on the joke with a lot of the movie. Um, but what really doesn't work for like why it's ranked so low is even though it is like I'm watching it and I know that it's a comedy, I'm meant to sit here and laugh and have a good time. I just wish the characters were giving me more of like something. I mean, they're very forgettable. A lot of the kills are great. Like yeah, like James mentioned, the cryo face smash, amazing, awesome. And I will say, as far as like space, like horror movie sequels go, leagues better than Leprechaun 4 in space. Like the give me 10 more Jason X's than that one movie. But yeah, just I just wish the characters were just giving me like more to hold on to, more likable, something.
Totally fair. Uh, Kerri, you started with this one. All
Yeah.
right.
Oh,
Cool.
I'll say one more thing about it real quick.
Sure.
It also gave off like serious, like early 2000 CG vibes, which did not
Mhm.
help its case at all. Because all I could parallel it with to that was like Battlefield Earth, which is one of the worst things ever made. But I wouldn't say this one's worse than that necessarily. But it gives out it's definitely like early 2000s looking. Like it just does. The CG just doesn't hold up, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, well, at least this wasn't a Scientology movie or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, true.
Um,
Yeah.
all right. So on to our twos. I don't know where we're at. My two is part two. James, where's your
I had
two?
a part four, the final chapter at two.
Nice. Chris, two.
I had Friday the 13th, the original.
Nice. Kerri, two.
I had part 3.
Nice. All right. So can we talk about anything now, Kerri? I'm sure there is.
Yeah, we can talk about part 2 and the final chapter.
Okay. The final chapter first or part two first? Doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't matter.
All right. We can do the final chapter. No, I'll do two first because I have that ranked higher, and I'll talk first. Um, I think part two is really great, actually. Um, because, and we'll get to it, but the original, um, it's a classic, but it's one of those where it's it's a rip off of Halloween. So it's like how great was it gonna be just as a whole? And then I feel like when you have the original Halloween, everyone's trying to be Halloween, the original Halloween, and they just don't know how to recreate that formula. They're just like, it's the best. I don't know how to get there. But with Friday the 13th, I feel like it's such a simple formula that like doesn't really like reinvent anything. I mean, I think the twist in it's really cool with the mom, but I feel like part two is more interesting a lot of the times with, um, Jason with the sack over his head, kind of like a, I think they probably got that from the town that dreaded sundown. Um, it's a really cool look. I like that look for Jason before he gets his iconic mask. Um, and then I really like I think her name's Jenny, the main
Mhm.
character. I think she's really great. She's the only one like really trying to like figure this out. Like well, what if the story's real? Kind of a deal. Um, and I like when she shows up to like his altar with his mother's head, and she's like instead of just getting murdered, she's like, oh, I'm gonna pretend to be his mom, and maybe it'll work, and then it totally does for a second, which is really cool. It sucks that like Alice is killed at the very beginning, but I also like kind of like how they cut off that, like they give you closure on that kind of story with her, and then they give us a new, and then and for part 3 they meant to continue Jenny's story, but that actress didn't want to come back, so they had to pivot from that. I think that could have even made part 2 even better if we could have got her story more fleshed out. But ultimately I just really like I think this movie's just done better than the original, and I think like the very ending of it is really cool. The ending to the original is really cool too, but this one with them thinking it's fine, and it's all the music is it's kind of a little bit of a retread of the original actually, but the way they do it is different, and it gets me I think more than the original does, where he just comes like out of the window, the mirror or whatever in the back behind the couch, when you're like, oh, the dog's safe, everything's fine, and then it kind of like ends a little bit on like a cliffhanger there, whereas with the original it cuts to like you don't end with that with him jumping out of the water at her. You end in the hospital, with her going like he's still there. But yeah, I think part 2 is just really interesting. So I like that one a lot. James, part 2.
Yeah, part 2 was definitely intriguing. I put this at number 3. I definitely like how it continued the same like concepts from the first one. I do like the whole story like behind his mom and how they handle that in this one. It had a lot going for it. I liked. I mean, obviously, this franchise is all about the kills too. I mean, this one certainly had plenty of that. I mean, all that part's awesome too. I think. I think I liked part 4 a little bit more than this one, but part 2 is definitely good though. I like part 2 a lot.
Totally, Chris.
Yeah, a lot of what you said, I agree with, Chad. The part 2, I love Jenny as a final girl. She kind of from jump after she heard about the legend of Jason at around the campfire, she felt some sense of like just sympathy towards him, and she talked to other characters about that. But she kind of, with that knowledge, was able to put on the sweater to kind of get out of that situation. And I don't know, and a lot of the characters I do really enjoy. It was nice just seeing somewhat likable, characters, and the kills were good. And the burlap sack mask, just scary, legitimately scary. So
Totally. Kerri, part 2.
Yeah, I think I had this the lowest ranked of all of us. I had it at number 5 though. I really like you for the reasons you guys said. I really like this one. I think my only downside to it is it does that thing that a lot of early 80s or 80s sequels did, where they kind of recap the prior movie in the beginning. But that doesn't really take away from it. Mostly I had it a little bit lower ranked than everyone else just because I like some of the other movies a little bit better. But this is just a classic part of this franchise. And I really enjoy watching this one.
Kerri, would it mess you up if I did a quick pivot? If I swapped 2 movies, my ranking?
Just tell me what they are.
So I wanted to swap Jason X and the original because I feel like I have the original too low.
All right, you had the original at 5 and Jason X at 3. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Just gonna swap those
Because
because I was talking about it and I was like, everything
right.
I was saying about 2, I was like, well, that's true for the original. Shit, I do like the original, and then I was like, I feel like it should be I knew it was gonna not be my number one, but I knew it had to be top five. And then now I'm like, I think it probably should be top three. So yeah, I just wanted to make that quick swap. Um, now we can talk about the final chapter. James, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, sure. The final chapter I had, actually number two. I was kind of surprised at how much I liked this one over even like the second one or the third one. I think it, like we were saying with part two, how it like recaps a lot of the first one, and I know the story continues on well after that. They take it in a different direction. I think this one, for just a brief minute, comes back to maybe ish what the original formula was. But by this time, like it hadn't gone too over the top with the storyline. The kills were still awesome. I mean, by the fourth one, by this time, I mean, people are getting all kinds of everything's put through them and stuck through them. They're getting thrown into windows, they're getting thrown out of windows, they're getting broken in 20 different places. I mean, by this part, like, it's peak, like, good, like, I guess, story driven kills for the most part. And, like, the storyline itself still stays pretty interesting, too. So I like this one a bit more than some of the immediate sequels.
Nice, nice. Chris.
The final chapter.
Yes.
I had this at 4, and there's a lot of reasons why I like it. I love Corey Feldman as Tommy, like just great. I also love that his way of combating Jason is just to hit him with just psychological damage, like just like that. It worked, and also Crispin Glover just there
Yes. Yeah.
randomly and doing his dance in that one scene, just like really going for it, making a choice. So yeah, I thoroughly love this movie.
Nice, nice. Kerri.
Yeah, I really like this one too. I think it's one of the stronger stories in one of the sequels. And like Corey Feldman is pretty compelling in this movie. I like the stuff between him and his family, and then you still get a group of teens that you can pick off. And they're real, like Crispin Glover, and really all of them in that movie are just like, especially Crispin Glover though, are really funny. And I like the ending to this movie too. It's interesting and yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I mirror everything you guys are saying. Like, when I was thinking about talking points for this movie, it was all that stuff you guys were highlighting. Um, Crispin Glover, Corey Feldman. Um, I think I have this one maybe a little too low. I think I could probably have it at 6 instead of 7. But when I was actually looking it over, but I think it's for a lot of the very similar movies. I think it's a pretty good place for it. But I also think 4 or wherever everybody else had it is a good place for it too, because I do think it is still kind of samey in a lot of ways that a lot of these movies are, but it does have that family. It does have kind of like a cool Tom Savini like kid who has all the horror makeup stuff in his room, which is an homage to Tom Savini because um, he like kind of like helped start the franchise, and then he kind of took a hiatus, and then he wanted to come back to work on the final chapter because it was supposed to be the last one. Um, and then they were marketing it as the last one. Obviously, it's called the final chapter, and then it made a lot of money. They were like, "Well, it's not the final chapter anymore." uh, they were consistently like being made for like $2 million, and they'd make $20 million. But then they'd be like, "Well, let's just keep taking two from that and making 20 more." Um, but yeah, I really love. This is maybe one of my favorite endings just because I just find it hilarious when he comes down the stairs and he just like chopped off like all of his hair. And like Chris was talking about psychological warfare. That's kind of like how you defeat Jason most of the
Yeah.
time. You did that in 2, did that in Freddy versus Jason. It's just like trying to like look like Jason or whatever as a kid, and then him going die die. It's just wild that like a kid is the one that kills Jason or whatever towards the end. And then yeah, Crispin Glover doing just whatever the hell, where's the corkscrew? Everything that he's doing in that movie is just great. What a fun actor. And yeah, I mean, there's really not too much else to highlight. I don't think. I think that's why I kind of had it towards the middle, where I was like, there's some parts that I love, but like I just as a whole, I'm not sure if there's much to grasp onto for me. But a lot of these movies are kind of like that. So very nitpicky and like how you rank things sometimes. So yeah, all right. I think everyone talked about the final chapter. Ended on me. So now we go through our ones, Kerri. I think we only have a couple more to talk about, right? Like three
We
more,
have
right?
3 more.
Yep. All right. So let's go through our number ones, and then we can rattle off those three. Kerri, what is your number one?
My number one is the original Friday the 13th.
All right. My number one is Part 6, Jason Lives. James, what's your number one?
I put part 1 at number 1. I put the original.
Nice. Chris, what is your number one?
Part 3. Part 3 is
Nice.
my number one.
This is really interesting because sometimes we've deviated from like the original being the number one. Sometimes it's not. Like with certain ones, like with Halloween, we had my buddy Hunter was like H2O is my favorite Halloween. Everyone else is like, you're crazy, dude. It's Halloween. What are you talking about? And then in Scream, James was like, I like Scream 3.
Bold choice.
It was.
But I do enjoy Scream 3. I enjoy it more every time I watch it.
Yeah, Scream 3 is good, I think, for sure. But it's just number one was kind of interesting. So yeah, I love 3 being there, and I love that watching through this. Jason Lives ended up being my number one because I didn't know if it would. But yeah, so do we want to do? Let's do Jason Lives, then 3, and then the original.
Yeah.
So that we'll go back and we'll end with the original that started it all. So with Jason Lives, I can't remember who started last time.
James did.
All right, Chris, do you want to start with Jason Lives?
Yeah, I can. I had this for my 7th pick. Again, we're still working with Tommy, like going through his story arc. It's not my favorite appearance of him. And honestly, this movie, it gets its spot for me based purely on just all the different kills, all the different places where Jason is kind of moving throughout in this. He's just terrorizing all these various walks of life people, and that just really works for me for this. So
totally.
That's pretty much it.
Totally. Kerri.
Yeah, I had this the lowest ranked. It's mostly because the beginning just pisses me off so much because Jason's just dead. Jason's dead. He's gone.
Yeah.
Tommy's like, no, I'm so worried about it. And then he basically resurrects Jason. And I'm like, Tommy, honestly, at this point, you get what you deserve, buddy. Like, I'm sorry. So, and then I can't really get past it for the rest of the movie. There are some really good kills in this one, though. And it's like, I understand why people love this one because it's like, finally, Jason's back and he's like really badass. But for some reason, I can deal with all these other plots that don't make any sense, and this one gets me.
Yeah. I mean, it's just interesting, like the way like each movie has like maybe like some problem, or they got like they're trying to figure out like a new way to make Jason like, or to stop Jason, and then like how do you recover from that? Like in the next one, do you just like do a retcon, or do you try to make it make sense? And I think this one is kind of cool because it's frustrating, and because like I don't know, it just feels like a very kind of like Frankenstein type of thing where he's like raising the dead. And then Jason becomes like a literal zombie. I think is so cool because like if you look at how Jason looks in this one, I think it's probably the coolest he's ever looked, because like you could see like his bones, and like he just looks like a legitimate zombie, and just looks really really cool. He's massive, but I love this one because right out of the gate they tell you that this is going to be really silly, really meta. It's not going to take itself seriously. It's going to be campy, like hardcore campy, in the way that like it's Looney Tunes at times. Right after Jason gets resurrected, they make a James Bond joke, and then I'm like, what? What is this? A
Yeah.
Friday the 13th movie? What is going on? I just think that's incredible. He's walking through the forest, and there's like an office party, like laser tag or paintball
Like a team
thing.
building event.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like he just like massacres those people, and like one guy he like throws him head first into a tree, and then the tree is like shaped like his face,
Mm-hmm.
which is like what? That's like a Looney Tunes thing that's going on. And yeah, I just think like so much of that happens throughout this. It just makes it really fun, really funny, and just kind of awesome. Like everybody's been saying, it's funny, it's awesome. Um, I understand like being frustrated about the beginning, but stuff like that a lot of times doesn't super bother me. I mean, he spends the rest of the movie trying to convince people that he's not crazy, um, and then I love I couldn't remember this, but like the ending song from Alice Cooper, it's like the man behind the mask. And I was like, this movie is just incredible. Like I was sitting there thinking, I was like, if there is a like quintessential Friday the 13th movie, this one feels like it for me over the original actually. Which is interesting because I never thought I would think that. So um yeah, James, what did you think about this one?
Yeah, I had this one at number 5. Yeah, it was easy to tell that, you know, camp was where the franchise was headed when Tommy stabs him with that metal pole and it gets electrocuted. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And yeah, then they follow that up immediately with the camera pans onto his eye, and then it's Jason walking through his pupil and slashing the screen. All the red comes out. Like, all right, and we're done. All right, let's see where this is going now. So, again, I don't mind camp. I don't mind the fun. It is easy to watch. It's funny. By this time, it's collapsed in on itself. But I don't mind that bit. I think this is the part where like the kills are maybe more or less what's focused on. It's got storylines to it also, like they all do. But at this point, I guess it's kind of off the rails more so than what came before it. So yeah.
Definitely. All right, so move on to part 3. Kerri, do you want to start with that one?
Yes, I can start with that one. So I have this pretty high up. I have this as my number 2. Honestly, just besides the first movie, this is my favorite in the franchise. I don't know, when I think of Friday the 13th sequels, like this is the movie that I think of. I just something about it just really works. It's just very classic, like group of young adults go to Camp Crystal Lake, and then they're picked off by Jason, and you also have some random side characters in the motorcycle gang that come along. I don't know, something about it just works. I think the kills are really great. The characters, I think, are there enough that you kind of enjoy watching them, but you aren't like devastated when they're killed. um, so, and then the 3D gimmicks are really fun when you're not watching them in 3D. You're like, oh yeah, you filmed that just for the 3D, and it's really funny. I think this one like has like such a great balance of like the campiness of this franchise, but also Jason is still like really scary in this, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I might have this one a little too low. I had this like 10. Um, which is really low, especially since like Chris has it as his number one, which I can't wait to hear him talk about it. But for me, it's just like I think it is. It just does feel kind of like a rehash. It doesn't have like a Crispin Glover going all out. It doesn't have like a Ginny. It feels like or Alice to really grasp onto. I really do like the guy who's like the jokester, and he just he's trying to get a girlfriend, but he
Hmm.
just can't stop fucking playing
Just being
pranks.
annoying. Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff, and so and the one time where you think he's actually dead, and then he goes, "Ha, I'm just that was a joke," and then later people think he's dead. He cried wolf too
Hmm.
many times, and he's actually dead. Um, so I like that character. Um, I think like the motorcycle gang is kind of interesting. So, and I think it was like the fact that like Jason was like just trying to chill in the barn or something, and they were like just messing around in there,
Hmm.
and so just started killing them because of that. But yeah, like whereas Kerri was like saying that the 3D effects are funny because that they're oh the yo-yo in my face because uh they're trying to like it's like that's how to show off your 3D effects. It's a yo-yo at your face. It's just like inventing like ways like this character plays with a yo-yo because it's gonna be really cool. You're gonna be like whoa. um and I just think like when you have like movies that are invented like to take part of a gimmick, like I think sometimes it can really work for the movie, and I think here it's kind of like a detractor from it a little bit, where it's a little bit too distracting from the actual like everything going on in the movie. But that's not to say that I don't also enjoy this movie at times. So I think I might have it a little too low, that I could have like put it more towards the middle, but it is what it is. James, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, part three is pretty cool. I do like the whole story of it. I do like the inclusion, like you guys have mentioned, with the motorcycle gangs. An interesting kind of extra thing put into there. I will agree with the 3D parts. I was like, all right, this is clearly what was meant to be, and this is only a 2D TV. So, I feel like 3D was more or less doomed before it became mainstream, and this didn't help. But, um, you could tell what was meant to be 3D and what wasn't. It was still pretty good. I think I had part two and part four higher because I think I just liked them a little more.
Totally. All right, Chris, why is this the best one?
This is the best one for a multitude of reasons. No, when it comes to like the 3D effect, I find like I could see that it could be very distracting. It's just like, oh god, here we go. Every time I watch this movie, it's so delightful and charming to me because it sets it in that time of just, oh, they were doing that with movies, and like this was like the gimmick. I'm a sucker for a gimmick sometimes when it comes to movies. But beyond that, even Chris as a final girl, love her just because she holds her own. I mean, ultimately, in the ending, she's kind of almost in this catatonic state after everything, but she gets there like for a while after like her love interest, Rick, I think his name is. He's even like murdered like outside of the cabin while she's like investigating things. And I just love her whole fight with Jason, like him having attacked her previously at one point, and like they're reconnecting, and having that storyline. Um, all of the characters for me are just so good. Like I personally found them all likable. Even Shelly, like the annoying prankster, like they're all like these 20 somethings who are just, trying to get away for a weekend and just have fun. They're all these archetypes. There are the two stoners who seem inexplicably older than everyone else, but I still don't mind it. I'm just like, oh, well, they're there. But they like whenever someone would get killed off, I'd be like, oh, man, kind of sucks. And also, he gets his iconic mask.
That's
Just
right.
it sets that tone. And from a storytelling perspective, nothing seemed like it was just shoehorned in. Like we needed the motorcycle gang to like show up and siphon some of the gas from the van because I guess they were planning on maybe burning down the barn. But that sets up a great brick because later when she's, in the van trying to get away, she runs out of gas. And that aspect I just really enjoyed. I felt like nothing was a mistake. This movie, it was created with everything with intention. And I feel like that's why it's my number one. When I think of a Friday the 13th movie or when I go to watch one, typically it's going to be part three, just because I have the best time with it.
That was a brilliant defense. I actually kind of forgot about like Chris's whole story. Like I remembered that was the thing. I couldn't remember which movie that was from. So that is a really good like plot thing that I forgot because I was like, well, it's just your standard thing and nothing really happens.
Yeah.
But quite a bit does happen. I like how you connected the dots about how saying like, that's how like the original like Halloween is like people are like it's so smartly written because everything's connected and nothing feels like a mistake. So that was a great
Yeah.
point. And the fact that he gets the mask, I think I should have had this way higher than I did.
Well, and even the opening kill with the store owners, like the
Right.
wife, she's knitting or whatever, and she's watching the news, and they're referencing like the second movie, like the events of the second movie. So like
Right.
they don't do the whole thing where it's just like we're just gonna recap it like in a normal way, but it all just kind of it flows in a way that I think is just so good.
Yeah. And
I love the soundtrack to this one.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh
like
yeah, that really funky
yeah.
kind of yeah.
the store owner, like, what does he have like a pet like chicken or something?
It was like a pet rabbit that was just amongst the
That's
produce,
right.
and like he was just going through the produce, just like eating like out of packages and things like that. Obviously, before like safety seals on packaging, but
Right.
just like everything about this movie from top to bottom, like I'm never it never lulls for me. It never like gets to a point where I'm just like, oh, I'm not having fun. Like I'm always having fun with this movie.
It's a great point. All right. So now we're on to the original. Okay. Right. And I'll start with that one. Um, it's the original. I've already talked about it a little bit. Friday the 13th, it was meant to capitalize off the success of Halloween, and it was a total ripoff of Halloween. And I say that because Sean S. Cunningham, who created Friday the 13th, is not shy about that. He said that. Like, I just wanted to make something, I wanted to ride that wave. Um, and he did successfully and made, a franchise that rivals that of Halloween. I think they're about equal. I think Halloween has maybe a couple movies that just Friday the 13th just can't reckon with. Like the original Halloween is an ultimate classic. I think one of the greatest horror movies, if not the ever made. I don't think Friday the 13th has that. Um, I don't think the first Friday the 13th even holds a candle to Halloween. That being said, I still think it's a really fun movie. I really like the camp setting. I think that really worked. You got Kevin Bacon is in this one.
Mhm.
So you actually have like a before he was a star, like bona fide star. And it's you got the Ralph, the creepy guy's like, don't go down there. Kind of a thing. You got there's so much in this movie. You have the oh no, I'm not. Oh, and you have like the whole twist. Like the people forget because the iconic thing about Friday the 13th is Jason with his mask, going around killing teenagers at camp, and yet if you're not that familiar with the franchise, you don't realize sometimes that the mother was the original killer in Friday the 13th. I mean, Casey Becker didn't even remember that, right? So, but she's seen the movie 20 goddamn times. But, anyways, Yeah, it is kind of like one of, you could say, like the ultimate camp movie. Um, but like for me, I don't know. I also think like it was done better a couple times in its own franchise. So that's why I felt bad having it at 5, but I think 3, like number 3 is like the a great spot to have it. Although if, someone does put it at number 1, I totally get that as well because it is the one that started everything, and I don't think the franchise gets so much better than the first movie that I feel like the first movie is also the quintessential Friday the 13th movie, quintessential like camp movie. I think oh trying to remember her name, the actress who plays Pamela Voorhees. I think she is really really good in that role. Very creepy, killer mommy killer.
Hmm.
Just the way she does that is just so good. Um, what else? I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's just really the way they do some of the kills, like the through the neck. Is just really cool, and how they were like talking about how they had to like blow like the fake blood through the tube to go out of the neck. It's just like, I don't know. It's like really cool practical effects, and made on a very small budget. And just a really effective movie. Otherwise, so yeah, I enjoy watching it quite a bit. Um, yeah, it is the reason for the season, or of the Friday the 13th, and the reason. Yeah, James.
Yeah, original one was awesome. I loved it. I did the thing where I put it one. I like the story. I like the setup. I think it's pretty cool overall. I do like the how they go into Pamela Voorhees and her actual role and like influence and all that. I think it's a lot. I think the ending's really cool. I like the kills. I mean, it's definitely like like effort to like the practical effects of people like trying, people like making it look really good, people making it look legit. I love the kills. I think it's just great overall. Love this movie.
Yeah, and also I did want to add, I think Alice is a great final girl.
Hmm.
And I also I love the decapitation. I love the jump scare at the end with Jason. I think is always gets me. I always try to time it, like when it's like, oh my god, he kind of a deal. Just always gets me. And then after that in the hospital room, I think is really cool too, especially because at the end there, when you have before you have him jumping out at her, it's just kind of sweet. She's like, it's all serene. She's on the canoe, and then the music is just final. Like, oh, it's what a relief. So I think it's just so well done. Chris.
No, yeah, it's a classic for a reason. It started off a franchise for a reason. It was my number 2 spot. I love it. One thing that I do love this really more the more time that I watch this movie is that as far as all the kills go and everything, it feels very much like a giallo. Like it's a mystery of who's committing these murders.
Yes. Yep.
Like before I even knew what giallo were, like back when I watched as a kid, I didn't, couldn't put that into words, but it treats it like just all these serious murders. What's happening? And also just Tom Savini being just a genius, like with the effects team and like just everyone that they had to be able to pull off these great kills. It stands the test of time.
Totally. Carrie.
Yeah, I had this as number one. Is the first horror movie I ever watched, um, and it was also the first one my sister watched, and she's still really scared of this movie. um, but yeah, like you guys said, this one, yeah, it's a classic for a reason. Like, I think just the plot it's simple, but it's really good. And the mystery aspect I think really works. And it has the kills to like kind of like everything just comes together so well. I don't watch this movie, I'm not bored. Like, I think it's well paced, the characters are interesting, and the plot pays off.
Yeah. Totally. And it's got strip monopoly. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're bored, there you go. Um, But yeah, all right, we did it. That was great. That's a short turnaround, actually. Like, we had a Friday the 13th that happened like a month or two ago, and then I was like, "Hey, let's catch the next one because the next one's in June." So I'm glad we were able to get this one done in December. But yeah, Kerri, do you have the overall ranking for us?
I do, and there's one tie. So even though there's 12 movies, I'm going to start at number 11. At number 11, we have Friday the 13th, the remake. At number 10, Jason Goes to Hell. At number 9, Freddy versus Jason. At number 8, Jason X. At number 7, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. At number 6, Part 5, A New Beginning. Tied at number 5, Part 6, Jason Lives. And Part 7, A New Blood, or The New Blood. At number 4, we have Part 3. At number 3, The Final Chapter. At number 2, Part 2. And at number 1, the original Friday the 13th.
Wow, that's a pretty solid ranking there. I think we did a good job, guys. Um, Yeah. All right. So we can go ahead and kind of close this out. I do want to thank Chris for joining us for this one. This is a special one. I know you're a big slasher guy. So
Oh yeah.
do you have any final words, anything you want to plug or anything like that?
Oh, nothing really. Thank you for having me. I always down to talk about horror, pretty much all things horror. I can be found at Blue Sky. My handle is Cellar Door Floor, and also just most places. That's Letterbox. I believe that's what I am there as well. But yeah, it was a good time.
Perfect. Yeah, loved having you on, and we can't wait to get you back on for other horror stuff. We love doing horror stuff around here, so um, we'll definitely make that happen. And yeah, I don't know, Kerri and James, you guys want to plug anything? You normally don't, other than
Nope.
welcome the prime time, the other horror thing that we do. You know, not much that else that goes on in this channel, but I plan to start doing more stuff on this channel soon. But you can go back through and watch a lot of our other you ranking with me episodes because we go through like franchises, directors, filmographies of actors, and just a lot of different things that we're trying to do. We got more stuff in the works that we're trying to figure out, and yeah, I do want to make this a little bit more of a frequent thing, but it is because we've actually started watching through a lot of this stuff, so sometimes it takes a little bit to prep, but we have a great time, and I had a great time with this one. I think, like I said, I think we did a fantastic job, and I just want to wish everybody a happy Friday the 13th. And oh no, are you ranking with me?
Yep.